So first of all, then, Greg, it's amazing to have you here. Thank you so much for coming. It's been a long time since I've actually sat down and had another chat with you. An absolute wealth of knowledge, and can't wait to get stuck into this interview with you. Before we get to the nitty-gritty, just tell me a little bit about yourself and what you specialize in.
Okay, thank you, and good morning, Sam. It's lovely to chat again and share my wisdom to you with everyone. It's more what don't I do? I'm predominantly a plant medicine man, but also I work with animals in the guides as well as the physical animals. I see an advanced seeing in with my gifts. I feel I can quickly go thinking of where I've come in the 10 years when I used to drum. It's just easy to access everything. And when I get clients, I have an inner knowing within me from the experience I've had for the last 10 years and just the knowing. But I also am a conduit. I can just simply ask, I've got a client, what plants to speak to me or what do I need to do? What is called in the shaman is the hollow bone. I'm just a conduit. I'm not officially trained in what I do, but it's just naturally there. And again, there are not many of us that have that divine connection to the consciousness. We can have that free speech. And the same when I'm walking in nature or in the rainforest of the world, the plants know me. They call me by touches. My shamanic name is Touches the Sky, and I can have deep conversations and they'll share secrets that they share with me that they won't share with anyone else, especially with my main background of cancer. They trust me from who I've been in the past. So that's a bit, I work with crystals, say with spirits. The shaman works with basically Mother Earth in the physical. We then involve ourselves with the human. And part of also what I do animal healing, I do land healing with my seeing trauma that's held there that I can energetically clear. And then the big one, which is, people have a real misunderstanding. We connect with the stars and the consciousness, those people that know how advanced I am with what I do. I've had friends ring up, Greg, I've got a client and we're doing something and something cosmic's come in. And she said, well, I'm the only person that I know. And we go and look at soul contracts in the galactic form, or that they were on another planet that was destroyed and there are bounty hunters. This is the crazy part of what I do, Sam. That isn't every day. I may be locked up for some of the things I say and do, but that's the reality of some of us where we're at. Everything is possible. It's only our limiting beliefs and doubt of what we can and can't do. And that's the thing, because I haven't been trained, my imagination has been so vivid from such a young age. And I laugh at what I used to do with cancer healing compared with what I do, but it worked. And when I'm training and when I'm developing new healing techniques, I'm just open to everything and I can do it. And the test was fundamentally to me, the testimonials of the people that have had the weird and wonderful from me speak volumes. And those that say you can't do that. Again, I remember when I first started, I had a lot of rebuff against me from other shamans, even saying shamans can't cure cancer. But some of us can. There are so many things, and each person is unique. What you do, I can't do what my friends do. And, we've all got our own gifts and powers, and mine are mine that I've worked through my own traumas and life experiences. And again, when I started 10 years ago, and I was joined the Leicester Shamanic circle, and I went to the places, I met all the versions of who I have been in the past. Likewise, I've got friends that have done the same in sound baths, and they come. Again, though you're looking at this version, when I'm sitting with the Aborigines, they don't see this version of me. They look at and see the soul, and they, in particular, see the past lives they just knew. So when I met Andrew Solomon, the elder of the Kukulandi tribe in the Daintree rainforest, he knew me. He said straight away, "It's nice to meet you again." And I was like, "I don't know who you are. I've never been to Australia in my life," but he connected. And my friend that took me there, Daryl, he said, "I've done my work there." And it's like, you know, I knew that I had to get you to meet these Aboriginals. Now I've done my bit and I'll leave you. And we sat for 4, 5 hours talking about things that they wouldn't normally share with anyone, let alone a white man. And I've been back to that place so many times. And again, I've got a lot of the Aboriginal gifts, telepathy. They talk to me and they've quizzed me. And, they know I'm more Aboriginal. They've said, "You're more Aboriginal than us, even though you're white." and But, these are all the versions. Some of my friends see me in that Aboriginal form. A lot of the time I'm doing my healing, people see me as forebears, a North American Indian guy that works with me, where again, tapping in, that was a former self. I know everything about him and the people associated with it. And that's where my original background into this came in. I didn't know anything about shamanism 10 years ago. It was just something that crossed my path and then it worked.
Are you ready to begin a career in massage therapy? With our accredited training, you can study to become a level 3 beauty massage therapist or a level 3 sports massage therapist, giving you the skills and confidence to work in salons, spas, wellness clinics, or even start your own business. Our courses are fully accredited and certified by professional awarding bodies, ensuring you meet the highest industry standards. You'll learn both the science of massage and the art of practical hands-on massage, guided step by step in supportive hands-on training. This is your chance to turn passion into profession with the National Wellness Academy, the East Midlands Academy for Holistic Therapists and Holistic Entrepreneurs. Inquire today by emailing enquiries@thenwo.co.uk or visiting our website at thenwo.co.uk and begin your journey into the world of massage therapy now.
Greg always believed in North American Indians. I felt they were put down by the white man. And that's where my belief system came in about healing and the medicine man and woman. I didn't know till 30 something years later that that would be part of my path. And then I've always been connected with nature, playing out in nature, being quite alone and at one with myself. But also my grandparents were country folk in Suffolk. So again, I used to go out with them making country wines. I made elderflower syrup and elderberries and things like that. I would just eat leaves
Wow.
and berries. And I then had something that nearly killed me, which is part of sometimes some of the things that have the calling for you. We'll come back to the cosmic. I had an operation a couple of years ago, and I tapped into when I was fighting for my life at 15, before my 16th birthday. There's a massive, great cosmic battle going on because certain forces wanted to take me out then. But, I've been highly protected by aliens. I work, extraterrestrial light beings, whatever label you want to put to them. But again, part of it, I have instant access to the Galactic Federation. So I know that though you're looking at this earthbound version of Greg, I've had other lives on other planets. I'm something like 10,062,000 years
Wow.
old. I've tapped in recently that I've been on Earth, gone to other planets, come backwards and forwards. Again, a number of friends that I connect with, we know this is our last time as our human existence. And that's why we're so gifted. We've done so many things that are collectively in our DNA, which is why we can do what we do. So, yeah. And then I got into nature. I was employed by the Suffolk Wildlife Trust as their youngest warden of 3 nature reserves at 17 on chalk grasslands, a chalk nature reserve with glowworms that weren't common then, but are almost rare now here in the UK. There's also a chalk pit with rare orchids. It also had a lime cave with lime kilns in where bats roosted. So again, I got qualified as the youngest bat handler in the UK. It was the largest bat hibernaculum in Europe at the time, with over 500 bats of different species. So again, I taught myself plant, and then that nature theme just keeps rolling through. Went to uni to do an environmental degree, spent 4 summers in Shetland botanical work, finding rare plants. I then gave up my degree because I wasn't meant to do it, but I just had enough to do. And then for 18 months, I travelled the UK doing dry stone walling. So everything that I've done is self-taught, because the students at college were saying, we learn more with you going out in nature than we do from the lecturers. So I thought I'd just take the risk then. So I worked for another wildlife organisation for a couple of years, doing more survey work, tapping in, reading the land. But at that time, I didn't know that I had all the psychic gifts. It was just who I was in what I did. And then, as I said, for 38 years, I've run my own business, being an environmental consultant, contractor, training people. Hence, now I can train people in the spiritual shamanic work, because from what I learned at 16, 17, I've continually trained other people in so many things. And that spiritual side, I never put the label on, but people that have connected with me have always said, you are spiritual. I got more oils, more inquisitive about nature. And then I say my marriage broke down, various things going on in my life. And then, like a lot of things, it's divine timing. So 10 years ago, my youngest daughter went to uni, and dad could be dad. Dad's always been dad. They've always asked me, Dad, what oils when they're younger. But I had the freedom because they were at university getting on with their lives. And how this new part of the chapter happened, that we used to go to Northumbria, and there's an amazing book store in Hexham, always about North American Indians, healing, etc., etc. And then Pops was looking at possibly going to Newcastle. So we had a family day out, the three of us. So I said, let's go to Hexham. And I walked into it, not a single book about North American Indians, but randomly, this is my crazy life, randomly, a book jumped off the shelf at 5 foot and fell in front of my feet. And of course, it's the book Hands of Healing. And that's like, and again, I've got goosebumps going through my body recounting that story. And that was the start of who I am now in the last 10 years. So that's made me think, because my dear friend Lizzie had breast cancer at the time with a group of people that I was working with. And they were dowsers. So I got in touch with Rachel, and she invited me to join the Leicestershire and Rutland dowsing group. And I say that's just expanded in, because the dowsing is innately in us as individuals, as much as we can use a pendulum or rods. And then I started to meet other highly connected spiritual people with their psychic gifts, and it just carried on. Well, we were doing archaeological digs, finding things hidden in nature that we could see, even though it was just a field. And then the archaeologists went out there, and we were put to the test a number of times. And there's one site just off the Foss Way and Watling Street, near the big fort, but this was an outlying fort. But again, I could read the vegetation that was there from the Bronze Age. I'd picked up things buried in the land to do with the conflict. And as though they'd opened up some, but we dowsers had walked the land, feeling into the land, got measurement. And then the next day, Stuart had gone to Coventry, where they'd actually rebuilt a Roman fort. And he rang up straight away and he said, Greg, what we measured in the land is exactly what the Romans did. So the archaeologists came back. There's one area that I walked, I could feel the people walking in and out and connected. So we did a test pit. So I drove a spike in where I picked was the gateway into the fort. And I'll come back to a cancer healing that I did and I posted some time ago. So we dug down. There's a fencing guy with me. So we had the shove holders and the soil changed. But the thing is that the intelligent people are expecting concrete foundations. But it's like, remember, this is Roman. And there were stones coming that were brick-like. But it is still dismissing. We were picking up Roman coins of the date. And again, if we think of modern society now, which was the same, basically they were throwing their McDonald's rubbish into the gateway. And that was what we've picked, where I'd picked up the wall, we were finding the wall. Then there was the gutter, and we were picking up animal bones. We were picking up shards of pottery, as well as the coins of that. And it's like, how much more information do you want? And it was there. And then another one, it's like, you can't dismiss it. We found a talisman. Basically, what they have is a whetstone for sharpening their swords, but also they put the talisman over a doorway into a fort. And it's like there. Then another time, I met up with the guy again, and I gave him a sealed envelope with my seeing gifts, and I told him what we were going to do. So I went over. So again, I can't tell him afterwards. It's written on a piece of paper, and basically, at a certain depth, I dug up what was part of an ancient lance, and when it came, it was perfectly round. It wasn't a broken branch. It was a wooden lance that had been burnt. Again, we've asked him to send it, but we haven't had any comeback. But again, we've been asked through the dowsing group to do a number of archaeological digs. And we laughed with Leicester University site just out Leicester that they missed all the test pits by 3 foot and hadn't gone deep enough. So that's the seeing and the earth connection. So I'm very much an earthbound. But going back to that fort, when my marriage broke down, I was looking for a house with my 2 daughters, couldn't find them, but eventually moved where I was just outside. But this is even more crazy and really is crazy. So I was doing a healing on my friend who had skin cancer. Basically, he had to have the whole of his cheek taken off to take the cancer that they couldn't find because I'd already taken it away from him. And then they put his cheek back on, but his wife had given me a photograph. So every single day with my healing gift, I just put my healing hand around the face of who he was as a hologram in front of me and just massaged it. A week later, they took it off and they said, "What have you done?" And he said, "What do you mean?" "We can't see any scar tissue." They said, that would only happen in something like 6 months, but he'd had his best next door neighbour do it. And the only time you can see it is when it's really cold. But unfortunately, the only other place they'd left 2 stitches in his face. So there's some scar tissue. But otherwise, you need almost like a microscope to actually go and see. But again, this is how the healing gift. So we did a past life regression, which is one of the 2 things that the shaman does. And we're sitting in my lounge going, he's crying out with what happened. And then he's describing going through this building. He's just walking through this building. And he said, "What's up, Greg?" And I said, "There are only 4 people alive today that know what you're walking through, because we'd only found that a number of weeks ago."
Right.
But then, so me being me, so I said, "Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you to it." And it was the 16th of August, because this is one of these amazing experiences, which was actually the same date that he died. So we went to the place and I showed him where the fort was. And we're walking down this field. Us as Dowsers, there's a ancient church, but there was a pagan building on there because it's on a hillside in a beautiful part of the country. But there's some mounds that they're calling a Mott and Bailey next door. But again, the Dowsers that feel and tap in, everyone was saying it's not, or it may be, a Mott and Bailey, but it's actually a Bronze Age burial.
Wow. Gosh.
So we're walking through, and I'm hearing loads of screams coming out, and my friend is as well. But there's not one. We walk next door, there's another one. And then he's walking down. He said, Greg, I know you can see me what I'm wearing, but I'm feeling I'm wearing a Roman tunic. He's a centurion. He's got the whole malarkey. He can smell things that the Romans that weren't in a field in Leicestershire. Was it 6, 7 years ago? Might be 8 years ago. But he had become the Roman soldier of his past life. And then there were 3 or 4 others that when we came back, we did an aerial, and it's like there are 6 Bronze Age burial mounds in this field that no one's ever dug up. And then we're walking down, and he's almost walking the same path. And then suddenly the pair of us in our 50s are just completely floored. And basically, he was killed on that spot. And we were just crying our eyes out. It's like, why are we crying? But we'd gone back to that past life of where he was killed, which was related to where he'd been stabbed elsewhere in his body when we were tapping in. You tell
Wow.
me.
Absolutely spectacular. Oh my gosh. That is incredible.
But, that's just one way. And I've done it with a number of clients. I had another lovely shamanic friend of mine, and she'd had something gone on with her neck, and I'd just taken some snake venom energy out. And then she'd asked for some more healing from me. And she was concerned. It's like, Greg, I've got 3 aches and pains in my back. And this is normally a precursor for anyone that has cancer, as you know. You have unexplained back pains, you might be having bleeding. And so I'm tapping in, and it's like, I'm getting she's got spinal cancer. And it's like, how am I going to tell a good friend out of the blue? But again, as I said, the conversation goes. So she's then chatting, and she just drops in randomly that I hadn't asked. And she told me that her dad died of spinal cancer.
Wow. Wow.
So again, as the shaman, we look at the ancestor line, and I looked, and I said, Mary, okay, I'm tapping in. I'm seeing 3 areas, and she said they're exactly where I'm getting the pains in my body, and I hadn't even touched it. I just saw. I said, okay, the first one is a crossbow bolt in. Second one is an arrow, and then I was just about to say what the third was, and she said, Greg, why is my lounge full of gunpowder? And I said, I'm just about to tell you. In another past life, you were shot by a musket ball. And she
Oof.
said, that's no, how can we smell? But she knows that in the shamanic realms, this is where the invisible comes back to life because we're going into those dimensions out of the 3D dimension we're in. But again, this is another one for the book at some time. So again, I get the download of oils and I'm massaging her spine. And it's like, this ain't happening, Greg. This ain't happening. I'm massaging and she's relaxed. If something happens, and then I work on where the next tumor is, and there's something even more weird, and then I get to the top one at the top of the back, and then I come out and I allow her to come out of that sensory trance. And she said, Greg, and I said, yeah, can you explain that again? And I said, what is it? And then she told me exactly what I felt, and we checked later. And she said, when you were working on the crossbow bolt, there was actually a hole in the vertebra. So even though I couldn't see it, but when I was touching her spine of that vertebra, there was actually a hole in her spine. I could put my finger in when I was massaging. And that was the unbelievable thing. I'm massaging it, and basically in front of my eyes, and her body was experienced. That bone had grown, and we couldn't find the hole. Then we went up to where the arrow was. Again, there was a cleft in the vertebra in her spine. Again, with my massaging and energy, that cleft in her bone disappeared. The same with the third. But I hadn't told her. There's no auto suggestion in anything that I do, Sam. She told me what happened. We examined. And then, as actual evidence, I was working with another man, and he was asking me about what I do. You know, the very open spiritual. And I said to him, and I was like, I can see a massive great axe in your back. And he said, what do you mean? I said, I'm looking at a past life. You've got an axe sticking in your back that I can still see today. He said, no, I haven't. I said, yeah, I can see it. And I'll tell you where it was, and pointed to it. And he said, that's uncanny. He said, I've been having a lot of back problems. He hasn't got a cancer, but this is just the proof to back up what we can do. And he said, yeah, I had a spinal x-ray. And basically, when the x-ray came back and I saw my consultant, he laughed at me. And the man said, what are you laughing about? And he said, well, you know where that pain is? It looks like somebody's chopped your spine and there's a massive great cut, like someone had put an axe in your back. And he said, you've never met me. I've never shared that story with you, but you've just walked into my lounge and you saw it.
That's
You tell me, sir.
crazy. That is
You know,
absolutely
that's
crazy.
physical proof of what I do. And there's
Absolutely.
a couple of other ones sharing, again, non-cancer.
Sorry, do you
Um,
mind if I just interject a minute?
yeah, sure.
Because I heard not too long ago actually that birthmarks are also a sign of how we were killed in a past life.
Yes.
Is that true? Would
Yeah,
you
that's
agree with
part of
that?
something I've tapped into. Yeah.
That's incredible because my son's got a really cool but spooky birthmark, and it's on his right upper arm, and it's in the
Mhm.
shape, a perfect shape of a pair of lips. And honestly, I was thinking, has he been seduced by a secret Russian spy
I
with like
was going to
poison on
say
his
that's
lipstick?
that's off the record.
With poison on the lipstick, and she's just kissed him on his arm, and that was it. It was a goner
Yeah.
or something, you
Mm.
know. But I was absolutely, or it could have been a vaccination, that
Well,
area in the top of his
and that's the
arm.
thing is that you and I know, and this is what I'm trying to share in it, that people think we're crazy. Everything is possible. This is what you know from your own work, but again, this is why you're loving interviewing me, because I've got 10 years of the craziest stories, because Spirit has gifted me these clients. You know, I'm not
Absolutely.
just doing Reiki, I'm not knocking Reiki in any shape or form, but I'm not a Reiki healer, I'm a master, or
Yeah.
they keep saying you're now a grand master shaman with
Yeah.
what we've got you or that you've nurtured in yourself.
Absolutely. And since we last spoke as well, Greg, I've also reached Reiki Master. I took the course, was it probably, I think it was this time last year actually, and I've been on such a powerful cosmic journey myself
Mm.
since reaching those different frequencies,
Yeah,
and it
that's
was
what it's
the
all about, Sam. We move into a different vibration frequency.
yeah, 100%. And it was the Lyrans that came to me, and which was just lovely and wonderful. And they gifted me, funnily enough, they gift me with a job, but they told me that, well, we have a job for you, but it's the job that you're always supposed to do on Earth. Do you want the job or not? And I was just so elated and I was so excited, but I had no idea what the job was at all. And they said you're a shapeshifter as well. And they showed me this
Yeah,
picture of this giant white lion's head and said, this is your energy, basically. Um, so I've been sort of learning about how to shift vibration, how to shift frequency,
yeah,
like at a moment's notice sort of thing. Which has been an amazing. They've been helping me the whole time, coming in and out. But I did also, I just want to tell you this, but I had quite an extraordinary experience with a man that I was dating. So it was probably actually in March of 2024 that I had my Reiki Masters
Yeah,
attunements, and it was the summer, sorry, a few months after that, and I was dating somebody, and I remember I was in this really tight embrace with this man, and I had all of these downloads. So I saw one of his past lives,
yeah, yeah.
and which completely corresponded with the life that he was living now. And like he obviously didn't believe, he was very 3D, didn't believe a word I was saying. Um, but I was like, I've just seen you. Now his last name, I'll tell you anyway, his last name was Oates. And what I saw of him in one of his past lives was that he was a Viking, but he worked on the fields up in Scotland, and he had this
Okay, yeah.
beautiful ginger hair, and it was all in braids, all down here,
Oh, yeah, very
and
Scottish, then, isn't it? Yeah,
incredibly, and he was this huge bloke, very much the stature that he is now, and he was just walking through his fields, very, very proud of his crop, very, very proud of what he had sown. And what was growing, of course, they were oats. He was an
yeah.
oat farmer. And then I saw this huge barn, if you like, with like horns coming from it, and I could absolutely describe the detail perfectly.
Mm,
Then after that, what I saw was complete tragedy, and I saw people coming in and burnt everything. They had fire on big branches coming in, and they
yeah,
destroyed all of his fields, and his barn burnt down. And because he was on his own, that like he didn't have a family, he didn't have a wife or anything, he built this from scratch all for himself, and it was gone in a second. And he was left feeling totally unstable and alone, like he couldn't trust anybody anymore. And it perfectly embodied the life that he was living in that moment, because he had lower back problems. Like his lower back was completely solid, like he couldn't
yeah.
move. And I was like, well, that's your stability. I said, you're
Mm,
feeling very unstable. Then he went and lived in a he went to do the whole van life thing, and he said, I feel much more secure in myself in this because nobody can get me, nobody can
oh,
take
yeah. It's
what
like
I've
that's
got.
security, isn't it? Yeah,
Exactly. And I was trying to explain this to him, I was like, this is from your past life. I said, come to me, let's have a healing session, and I'll see what I can do. But because he was so resistant as to what I was telling him, I couldn't get in there to do any healing on him at
yeah.
all. And I said, you just need to just be open to any possibilities, any thoughts or feelings that are coming through, really
Mm,
trying to bring him into it. But he was so closed and so resistant. Unfortunately, so I wasn't able, and the Lyrens were obviously trying as well to come through, and
yeah.
there was just nothing, and I was like,
But,
oh,
these are lessons for us to learn that we can't save everyone,
mm,
and this is something that how many people are going to meet a medicine man and shaman to take their cancer or
yeah,
any healing, whatever sexual trauma, all the other things that I do. It isn't every day. So it's a massive, great step for having this big 6 foot giant stand over you and blow plants in that they can smell, taste, and see, but they're not there. And all the other weird stuff that I do and other shamans can do.
yeah, yeah. I know you don't. So, it's very, very difficult to be able to tell somebody what you can do and what they will achieve if it's not in medical
Yeah,
records, if it's not in, seeing is very much believing. And I do think that we have forgotten who we are. As
yeah,
humans,
we have.
we have forgotten what we're capable of, and we've become so, I hate to use the word brainwashed, but it is conditioned,
It is.
brainwashed to trust these white men in coats.
Mm.
So, but I just want to step back a little bit to what you were talking about before. And you mentioned dowsing. You were talking about dowsing the land. So just for the purpose for the listeners that don't quite understand what dowsing is, would you mind just explaining to us what dowsing the land might mean?
Well, to me, everything is energy. So when I'm looking at a client or a land or a building, the energy, what I call the energy memory, is still there. So, like we were seeing what was there, we were feeling. These are, our ordinary senses, but we have the psychic senses that are enhanced that we can see, which is clairvoyance, and all the other clairs, touch, feel. That I can touch and feel things without touching them. And again, this inner knowing, which is our intuition, we all have these psychic gifts. And basically, what the rods are doing, or a bent hazel twig, or a pendulum, or whatever it is picking up. Most people know dowsing from finding water. And it's like, oh, yeah, my granddad used to do that. I've got a dowser. But these tools, the same as shamans, we all have tools in what to do. So a rod could be a piece of a coat hanger, or you could buy expensive dowsing rods made of copper or what have you. And basically, all you're doing is asking a question. And then you either get a yes or no. But what you're doing when you're tapping in, that when the rods cross, that's where you're finding the water, the foundations of a building, a lost coin, or a piece of jewelry. The energy is being transmuted from buried in the earth up for that tool. So again, when I'm working with any client, especially my cancer clients, this is what people said. It's like, you did this right from the beginning, Greg. So I have a number of protocols that it's no good me healing you of cancer if what you're living in or your house is holding an energy. So I was working with a lady that had ovarian cancer in Winstable, and I had picked up there was a dead body in the house. But the irony was, when I was chatting to the client, that she used to rent the house next door where she picked up her cancer. Ironically, the house that she moved in next door, the lady there had only just died of uterine cancer. So you tell me. So basically, in the boundary of the two houses with dead bodies. So again, that's known as geopathic stress in some shape or form. It's an earthbound energy that can come out. It could be a portal of just energy coming out, or as I say, it could be dead bodies. Again, that's part of my land healing work. I go into civil war because there's a lot of energy. And then when I'm standing in those civil war sites, I'm told what cancers are prevalent because of the energy of what happened in that battle zone. And then I'll go and look in the records, and I then find in the records of that county or that area the same cancers that I've been told. But again, that was something that I did right from again. A number of years later, a friend of mine, again, just to prove what we're now talking about in this interview isn't fictitious, she gave me a massive 3-inch document. And this was someone who had done 30 years of research of geopathic stress, and he had listed all his cancer clients because of what was found in their houses or whatever. And that's the proof. So
Wow.
that's the first thing. It's no good me trying to save someone's life with cancer if the house that they're living in has got it. And I'll share an experience. In March, before I shot over to Portugal, one of my last clients, she had breast cancer, knows all the food, really well. Again, I was recommended, so I went to the lady's house. She sent some photos, and I picked up, there was 6 energies, and I kept on getting civil war. And she was in Warwickshire, and it's like, she's miles away from the Battle of Edge Hill. It's not there. And I kept getting this word, civil war, civil war. So I then found the little hamlet that she lived in, and I found an old documented record that was a pre-skirmish almost outside a house, and a house tied in, or the original part of the house tied in to that date. It's out in the middle of nowhere in the woods. So I'm chatting to her, and the first thing is like, how will I know when my breast cancer's gone, Greg? And I said, well, the way that I work at the level I work with, that I get my clients to chat to their tumor, because to me everything has consciousness and we can tap into it if you do. So I said, go and have a chat with your left breast. So she chatted with her breast, and she said, I've been told it's going to go instantly or start. And I said, well, do you believe it? And she said, well, yes, because I'm spiritual. I've gone away from it. You're recommended. You're here, and I trust you because of the experience you've got. So I offered, rather than me go around and clear the energy in the house, I said, as I like to do with a number of my clients, that they have a greater connection and belief in me if they're working at the same energy frequency with me. So she'd had a new extension built on her master bedroom. She couldn't sleep in her master bedroom. Beautiful. Oak beams, amazing view out there. So we tap in the first one because she can't sleep. She can't sell the house, ironically, because of the 6 in. So we tap into this beautiful oak beam at the end. And basically, Sam, that tree had grown on a dead body in the wood. So that dead person's body was grown in the tree, it's held in it and was causing it. So we transmuted it. And basically then we went into her son's bedroom, and who's got some brain damage. But again, when you've got brain damage, you then accelerate some of your other gifts. And he kept on saying, Mum, it's like, I'm hearing all these voices, which he was hearing voices from the past. So we transmuted, then we went into office. And then we worked outside to go with the Civil War. And here I am. Here are muskets going. No one's shooting, they're muskets. So we clear it. And she said, it's crazy. You've opened me up to so much. And I said, well, the other thing is, look at the trees. She said, what do you mean, look at the trees? She said, I can't see anything. I said, no, look at the trees. So at the top of the drive, all the trees were perfectly straight. All the trees below the cottage were perfectly straight. And I said, the one closest to the house, look at the neighbours over your fence. And I said, what are you seeing? She said, they're all twisted. And I said, well, yeah. The reason why they're twisted is they're picking up an energy from the earth, and the trees aren't growing straight because this weird energy is going in it. And so we say our goodbyes, and then she sends me a message. Thank you, Greg. And she said, I really, really believe that, like you got me to chat to my breast. She said, the tumour's gone. She rings up the next night. Greg, the tumour's shrinking. I can feel the tumour in my breast. I didn't know in under a week. She went and had a scan, and the tumour had shrunk by 50% in under a week.
Oh my gosh, that's
So,
fast.
she hasn't taken any plant medicines from me. I gave her some other things. I told her, because she's a food nutritionist, what foods are fantastic for breast cancer. But basically, it was just energy clearing. And I've done this with a number of clients. They don't have to have all the other stuff I bring on. It's the energy. And again, I've walked into a number of houses and people said, this room, and I'll share another. So I had a lady in Sussex with colon cancer. And she felt, and she said, it's got to be environmental. I checked, no past life, bloody blah. So I went to her, and in the utility room, again, because of the energy that I hold, that I make these energies come alive. So again, they felt into it, couldn't. So I placed my hand into it, and then suddenly I got them, and it's like, Greg, we can't push our hand, and basically there's this circle going from the earth up. And I said, what's there? And they said, well, you see our poor 8-year-old son in the nappies. That's where he sleeps. So he's got retarded physical development so backwards that he's not an 8-year-old boy. He is in height, but he's still childlike because he's there. And I sensed her husband, and I said, there's 3 others. So he went off and found, and then chatting to them, the mother-in-law, she said, I've never liked this room. And I've always felt the house, but I didn't want to say it, but I've said it, and it's like, now you've picked it up. So we're in there, interestingly, again, diagonally where she sleeps in the bed, where her colon is, another energy line, geopathic stress. And I'm getting, and she said, I can't believe I'm watching my husband with you holding like this almost invisible sheet and you're transmuting it. And then we feel into it later. And there's an energy difference. And then 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, having transmuted that energy, it becomes normalized.
God.
And I had a couple in Birmingham. I've only done one male cancer. There's not that many per year. And basically, again, asked by a friend to look at it, picked up where it was. She was into our line of work. She was a crystal healer. So I'm just saying, go into your bedroom and feel in. Again, because I'd activated, and she came down. I was like, there's this strange warmth in the middle of our bed that I don't feel, but I do now. And she said, that's really interesting because I can't remember who had which side, but basically where this geopathic stress that was coming through the middle of our house, that on her side of the bed, basically that's where she had her cancer, and he had it on his opposite breast because he was in it.
Gosh.
And then there's a tiny little one in the hall going into the kitchen, and I said, what's up there? And that's where her daughter sleeps, who was having other health issues.
That's crazy. That is crazy. Where does that energy come from then? Where is it? I mean, historically,
Again,
it could just have remained
this is
there.
part of the work of the shaman tapping into these earth energies. Like when you're asking me about dowsing, they're there. Again, there's a number of other things. For where there is light, there is also dark. Part of things that some of us has tapped into, there are things of other people that are on the dark side that have opened up. But there are healing portals. There are so many different energies out there, Sam. If you want to go into this line of work, they're all over the world.
I will do one day. It's not my right time just yet, but I absolutely
This
will
is
be
where I've been put
exploring it.
in and doing. And
It's just
again,
incredible.
that was the thing that made me look through the dowsing group, and we were talking about water holding energy. As you know, that's what's in our body. And it was a light bulb moment because my friend had breast cancer. So I went into the house, and it's like they've got a proper well with a pump in the Lincolnshire limestone. So I went in and doused, and exactly the same. There was this energy, and I said to Rich, that's where Lizzie is. And she'd never had cancer in the other places until she moved into that house. So again, it's just reconfirming, what we're chatting. But then having transmuted that, and then this was a crazy one. I then tapped in, and there's a little bit of self doubt. It's like, is this really happening? So I went and got my rods, and basically, Sam, throughout the whole of the house, every 3 foot there was an energy line, and then at right angles. And again, when we're doing dowsing work, again, because these energies can give rise to cancer or other diseases, that you can do earth acupuncture, that you can put copper on. And basically, what the last thing you want to do is to transmute an energy line going through someone's house that's got cancer, and then you push it into someone's house. That's just unprofessional from it. So all you do is you move it. And it's like, I've never experienced it. And I spoke to a few friends, they didn't. But with what I did, because I couldn't transmute it, so what I actually did was actually lift it above the house, so the energy wasn't in there. And again, I have used this when I'm training some of my students in what I do or dowsing, because everything is possible. So when I'm working with a client, I can make them bigger, smaller with the work. So what I do is I call up this village and have it, and then I ask people to run their hands over the table of where I've shrunk this village, and I just laugh. Their hands just go, and I said, I'm trying to push my hand through this line, Greg, and I can't. I keep going up, and I said, well, that's interesting. So basically, what I've done was shrunk this village in Lincolnshire in, And I said, this is what I've done because there's so much energy to transmute. It's just easier for me to lift over the house. And that's what you're feeling in from it.
Oh, wow. That's great.
But again,
That's
you say
brilliant.
to an oncologist or a scientist that you've cured someone or healed them of cancer because you've just taken some energy of a dead person out of a dead tree in someone's barn.
Yeah, I know.
But, that
It
is what
wouldn't.
I did
Yeah.
10 years ago and is my first protocol check with any client I'm working.
I love that. I love that because it just, we hear so many times that energy passes on through lives. If it's not released, it passes on through our lives, through each different incarnation,
Yeah.
and can present itself much in the physical form unless it is released, unless we recognize that there is something. I had um when I went to ayahuasca and I was asking them why do I keep getting so many sinus infections, and they showed me that I was in a burning house once upon a
Mm-hmm.
time, so I need to do some healing work around that, which I haven't
Yeah.
done as of yet because I'm still struggling with my sinuses, but but I will
Well,
do, I
book a
will get
session with
around to
me.
it, but
And the thing is, because of who I am and what I do, with a lot of my clients, though my main work that everyone knows me for is cancer, I also do mental health and sexual trauma because a lot of that is overlaid in the cancers anyway. And, it's the trust and integrity that I've got. And when I'm working with clients, Sam, they just grasp it. It's like they've had this trauma in their body for so long. And I get them to do the work. In the early days, I do it, but I always find that the clients get more when they do it. And I've
yeah,
got clients gone through horrendous sexual traumas and abuse, and they've gone back to that or a past life. And we're talking a very short time, a number of minutes that they can change that story. While a lot of practitioners, with past life regression, charge masses of money and it's hours and hours. And I've done work on myself on the same. And Spirit said once, it's like, you shouldn't have been able to do that for 5 years. But to me, because I'm working on my past life trauma, why would I want to see the whole story? And I've spoken to other healers, it's part of their ego. They want to see the whole story. But when it's to me, I just
ah,
want it gone. You know,
yeah,
why should I spend 4 hours doing it? When when a couple of friends have done work as part of their training, they said they love working with me because it's like 40 minutes and you pick up so much around.
yeah. That makes total sense. Why look at the whole scenario when you just need to clear that little bit and then it's gone.
Hmm.
That makes so
So,
much sense.
you can heal it. When you've got a quiet moment, relax, do your 4 deep breaths, open up, ask for that timeline to be shown, see what happens, and put the fire out before, take yourself out of that scenario that it doesn't. And
So get
this is,
there before it happens,
yeah,
you're saying,
that's
rather
it.
than
And
actually
this is
heal
what
it.
clients, when they've had past life regressions and they come out, and it's like, what have we just done? I'm a different person. And I said, well, this is what's happened. You've gone into that past life. And basically, that energy vibration has gone through all the other reincarnates that you've had. And you're now lighter. You've cleared it and you feel better. Another lady that I worked on
Sorry,
in the
Greg,
early,
I just want to clarify just on that point. So when you're taking people back through to that specific scenario, you're actually changing the timeline so that that
yeah,
scenario never happens.
yeah,
Wow, that's really insightful. I hadn't considered that. That's genius, actually. Yeah,
you know, it's just how I do it. I know other people in their shamanic work how they do. That's how I work.
that's
You know,
great. Yeah, makes
because
sense.
I know I'm probably doing myself out of work, but the people that know who I am say that you're so powerful that you're holding that space because I'm living it.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, for me, it's quite hard when I'm going into sexual trauma with my clients
Mm.
because I've got friends that have been in those positions. But it's just who I am that I'm living that with them because I I may be present with them in their therapy or wherever I'm in, but it's also the same when I'm doing remote. I was working with a friend that I've got to do some cancer work with, but it was a soul retrieval, and she was in Australia, but she was ready. She'd met me here in the East Midlands when I was doing some spiritual awareness session with a number of people. I tried to see her in Australia when I was down there, but because of other things in her body, they tried to, but we did it. And again, the shaman, or some of us shamans, are multidimensional. So I got her to touch me, and she said, I can feel. She could describe me. Okay, yes, she's seen me before, but she said, here in my room, in my bedroom, doing it. And likewise, she was in front of me because the energy and the portal that I encompass as a shaman, that we're in two places at once, we can be. And basically, I retrieved that soul fragment that she lost. It came into my body, and basically, I blew into the hologram of her on the floor, and it went quiet in Australia. And then about a minute or two later, there was so many expletives coming down off the video call, and she was completely zapped. She said, I waited, and it's like, I can't believe it. And it's like, is this really happening? And then the blow that she received in Australia, thousands of miles away, went into her heart chakra, and it just exploded through her body and then re-encompassed it in her physical body. That divine part that she had lost had come back into her body.
Oh my God, that is lovely. That is such a lovely. Oh wow. How
Again,
empowering. It's just beautiful.
I'm getting really emotional because I rarely bring this up. Again, with a number of my other female clients with breast cancer, they've had to have terminations. I'm in mixed views about that.
Okay.
Just bear with me, this one's quite hard to get out. But for them to actually meet their dead baby for having a miscarriage at 4 months, it's a living child in them. They've got the bump, they're connected, and then all my goosebumps. The doctor then says you've got to kill that life. The trauma that these beautiful ladies have gone, and I blow back the soul of their baby back into their body, and to see what happens to them, you know, they are reborn with their child, and I just step away because there's privacy, and it's like sometimes those clients are staying there for an hour because they're now touching their physical baby in an energy form because it's inside. And it's just amazing what we can do as shamans at that level.
Mm.
And to give, and again, another one, a close friend of mine, her niece died, suicide in a lake. I picked up, she called me to help her, but I was up in Scotland and did it. And she went to the other side and was quiet, and then just said, it's like, I know you're a master shaman, Greg, but it's like that experience I'll never forget, that I was able to sit with my dead niece and we had a long conversation, and I was in the other realm. It's like, I didn't know that was possible, but I
Mm.
know that you have that ability in your healing space, your portal of what you do as a shaman, to take me there. And I've done that with a number of other people. And these are big hitting ones that are life changing for those people.
Yeah, of course. So, so healing. So healing. And then they'll probably meet up again and then go and spend a full life in their next life
Oh
together.
yeah, that's
It's
it.
just
Yeah,
beautiful.
but and again, you know, I can't save everyone. There are contracts and other things which I don't interfere with. And the few clients that I do lose, which are hardly any, that I get more satisfaction from the messages that they write me or ring, and they said, you've given us X many months or years with our loved one that we wouldn't, because we were told they're going to be gone in such a short period of time, but you've opened us up into all the spiritual realms that you connect. And they said, to sit with our dying mother, father, whoever it is, and to watch our grandparents come into the room. They said, we thank you for that let alone all the other stuff, because that just helps with our grieving. Where
Yeah, of
before we'd have been in
course.
trauma, you've made, it's still tragic that that loved one has parted, but we all do. And as you say, you'll meet them again at some time, but it just takes some of the pain out of that grief.
Absolutely. And what wonderful gifts that you have, Greg, honestly, no matter how kind of devastating and traumatic it can be for you to heal people that do need this healing. Honestly, the things you must have experienced along your
Oh, and
journey
that's the
with
thing is,
this as well,
if
because
we
this is
turn the clock
obviously
back
your,
10 years ago to when I started, and I said I didn't know anything about shamanism, what happened in the Mexican desert happened because it was for me.
yeah.
But if you told me even 2 years ago what I'm doing now, I would have disbelieved you. 5 years ago, turn the clock 10 years back, and it's like, I would partly laugh. But the people that trust you have that gift because you have that gift, and only you have that strength to take on. Because it's like, though the cancer, when I came out of Mexico, they said, you're the cancer shaman. And I broke down. And one of the things that I did at Wirikuta was to take some jewelry of my friend that had the breast cancer. Unfortunately, because of what they'd done as a treatment, she ended up having pancreatic cancer. Pancreatic cancer is to do with the sweetness of life, and she wasn't enjoying being alive. And she said, if I ever get cancer again, I'm not having chemo, I'm not having radiation because it's destroyed me. And most people said we'd never wish chemo on our worst enemy. It's so barbaric. But again, I did what I did in Mexico, came back when I was told that, rang Lizzie, and she said, interesting, while you've gone away, we don't know why, and the medical people, my two tumours had just disappeared. And they were going back, and the doctors were saying they were never there. And it's like, how can they not be there? You've got scans of showing two walnut-sized tumours sitting on your pancreas. But as I said, that was my first real cancer healing way back then, 10 years ago. I just did a little ceremony, having the energetic connection through a piece of jewelry with my friends. Same again, I had some other pieces to connect me with some other people that I did the work on the summit.
That's brilliant. I do have some more questions about cancer more specifically,
Yeah.
though, uh, because there are so many different contributors to cancer. Would you say that cancer is literally all cancer is energetic and it can be cleared using your shamanic gifts? Or
For me, yes, because it's how I work, and we are energy. Though you see I'm wearing something white, it's reflecting back. When we see something green, we say it's green. Well, in fact, it's not green. It's a reflection back. Heat, light, all forms of everything is energy.
Mhm.
And people say, well, you say it's simple, but this is why I accelerate healers that I train, because I keep it simple. I'm not into egos and it's like, what have you. I find the right people that come to me with the gifts because they're normally humble. And part of why they like working with me is that I'm so broad in what I do because I haven't been shuttered in. If you're trained, you're not open. And that's why I say I create my own healing techniques.
Yeah.
And with the work that I do, yes, I can give you some leaves, a root, a bark, or what have you, of a plant that I've met around the world. Also, because I'm a plant spirit healer, I actually have that plant growing energetically in my body when I'm doing my work. So I can blow it into you. So, again, a lady that had lung cancer, wasn't smoker, lungs to do with the breast on the left is to do with grief. So I was working on her, and basically I was blowing um, cinnamon into her. Yeah, cinnamon for lungs. And again, she was aghast at the fact when she came out. She said, even though I know that you didn't have a piece of cinnamon anywhere near you. But she said, when you blew it into my lungs area, she said, I saw it go in, two pieces of bark going into the lungs. She said, I could taste it on my tongue and I could smell it. And she said, how does that happen? I said, well, that's the energy of those plants. So going back to your question, yes, the energy. And the same with all my clients. I work with Ayurvedic medicines. I work with the cancer cures here from the UK. One's from Australia, Africa, Amazon. You know, I have connections with all of them. So you can take it, as I say, I can blow it into people directly with me, or if they're in somewhere else in the world, I can blow it. And again, with the seeing gift that I've got, I can physically, through my seeing, implant it into someone's body. I've had people come out of comas with the work that I do by putting simple plant meds. A couple of students that are real high flyers with me that I've trained globally, that we've put as a young 3-year-old in New Zealand through a Maori healing group that I was on. And it's like, to me, okay, women with menopause, perimenopause, with breast cancer, ovarian, um, uterine, that makes sense. But when you get children born into this world with cancer, to me, it's a light bulb, and it's like, no, there's something deeper. So I then had a conversation with the auntie of the lady, and we had a conversation. And I feel, and we're now going really into some of the other work, that there was a curse. So I just asked her, and she said, yeah, the work was, we've done the work on the curse. The curse has been taken away. And I said, what? She said, well, no, we got someone to take the curse. And I said, the curse hasn't been taken away. She said, really? Yeah, I'm being told that they removed it, but it's come back into it. And she gave me some information. So again, I was training one of my students. Again, when we're doing this work, they're highly protected. I do not put my students in any risk in the work that we do in the spirit realm. So again, I got her to remote view. She went back into time into this place, and basically someone had upset Samaris. And she saw this little old lady. They had a big argument. So we then again changed the story, blah, blah, blah. I hadn't told her, but the information that the aunt had given, it was with the grandma of the mother of the son that had given birth to the baby boy. But again, the pair of us, and all I did, because he's got brain cancer, I went in, took the tumour out, I put my giant horsetail and some of the other plant medicines, and we did our work. And I forgot, but I haven't been in touch with Leah, so I sent her a message. I think about 4 days later, and she was just aghast. She said, I can't thank you. The whole of our family are completely indebted. Even the doctors don't know. He'd had tubes in his head, couldn't eat, having fits all the time. And then she said, he's out of bed playing with all the other children.
Mm. Oh, that's
So,
just
we can do it remotely,
wonderful.
but that's remote healing on another massive level.
Yeah, of course, of course. Oh, Greg, it's just wonderful hearing those stories. Honestly, it's so, so
But again, it
lovely.
was hundreds. It's like my lovely Irish friend that had breast cancer. She denied it, and she'd had it. And we hadn't met. We've met since, and I've done some other work on her and her daughter and so many things. And I picked up where it was, and she denied it. And I told her exactly where it was, and she said, I've had it for months. And she was partly saying, "How, I can't have breast cancer. I'm fit, blah de blah. I eat blah de blah." And it was some stuff to do with her ex-husband as well, and some words. And I just looked at her, and then she sends me a message again, going back to your energy. And she said, "What's happening, Greg?" what have you just done? I said, well, you've asked me to remove it, and so I've taken it out. And she said, where the tumor is, I've got water pouring out the side of my breast. You know, water, whatever you want to call it. There's just another energy that has just been transmuted. And it's the same with a number of other clients that they had. The doctor that I'm seeing as a close friend, and this was my hardest client that I thought I had just before Christmas. 52 years in the medical profession, someone asked me to do. It's like this could be a big battle, but he's actually a healer and was pushed into medical. Again, I was honest with him as I would do with a number of clients. You know, I've never worked with this medicine. It was some Ayurvedic medicine. He'd got bowel metastatic bowel cancer plus other ones because he'd had chemo. He'd also had 6 jabs by being a doctor. So there's so many different layers to add on. And I was looking for Giloy was the one that I was looking to help his liver cancer because I spend a lot of time on the liver working with my clients. And I couldn't, and it's like every time I've gone in, it was a shop where I used to live around the corner when I moved to Crawley. And it's like, why is there a shop around the corner that I move into Crawley and all the other event? And it's like, I couldn't see it. And it's like, it's always there. But at the top left hand side, Shoki was there. Never heard anything but knew it was a cancer cure. So I bought 7 packets and basically had it. And he was cured. You know, I did other energetic stuff, transmute and things to do with the vaccines, and he's fit and healthy.
Oh my
But
God.
he had to go in a hospital a few weeks ago um, because he's got the cancer label. He's actually on a cancer ward. So, again, a lot of energy that I have to clear.
Yeah.
And some stuff was going. I got a message. I need to see him that day. So I did, and he looked okay. But again, energetically, as another experience, as the top shamans, we have our spirit guides. As I said, you know, sometimes I've got my clients saying there's a North American Indian operating over, but I work with a jaguar. I'm a jaguar shaman, though I'm in this white form. A jaguar shaman is a shaman that's been reincarnated so many times in the Amazon, in particular. Ironically, Peru, where I was 2 years ago, so everything happens for a reason. But I work with a golden jaguar. So the lady that we talked about earlier, she was blown away and she said, I'm struggling, Greg. I've just had a cat go into my body and take out my tumor. So again, this friend is there and I'm looking and I'm just seeing my little shrunk Black Panther, which is one of the forms that it comes in, doing its work. Um,
But that's your shape shifting, isn't it? You
yeah,
say.
that's it. And I rarely have anyone watching, but I had a friend watching me and she was blown away because she saw the Black Panther as my jaguar working with me. And she said it was like the two of you to see a real shaman with his guide. And it's like you were putting your hand in, pulling out energy. And there was this Black Panther just pulling black smoke out of her aunt who had pancreatic cancer.
Wow.
And then I got a message that I'd saved his life. I spoke to a friend and he said, yeah, the same. He said, yeah, I just got a message from Spirit. If you hadn't seen him that afternoon, he would be flatlined. And then his daughter, who I'm really close friends with, said the same thing. The doctors were saying that Dad would have died at any single time that he was in there because what was playing out on his lungs and his heart. But they were, and again, I didn't know that when I was sitting next to him. I just went into his body and worked on those two organs. And again, a number of days later, before he got discharged, he had a load of water in his bed. He hadn't wet himself, he hadn't drunk any water. And my friend was saying, you know, how am I going to explain it to Dad? And I was like, you don't need to explain it to your dad because what he's had with his treatment and healing sessions are beyond already. And
Yeah.
basically, all I did was share the same example about my friend over in Ireland that had the same, that I transmuted some energy and it's come out of the body as water. And
Wow.
again, when I see the Nangari healers the Aboriginal healers, they work in similar ways with the energy that they move out. And it's part of this all-encompassing psychic surgery. That why can't we go in? Some of them are trickery. I don't believe that when they put their hands in and come, I think that's playing with some of it. But as I said, I've got proof of people that have watched me do with the spirit guides, and I've had other clients, ladies that I've taken breast cancer, and they're saying, I can see a small kitten looking like a baby jaguar in my breast. Other people said, I'm in a closed room, I've had cat's whiskers. I've had other clients saying, why am I smelling cat piss? And it's like, it's not cat piss, it's the jaguar. It's scent marked to say it's just done its work.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I love it. And they are such powerful, powerful healers. And they just travel through so many different dimensions and so many
Yeah.
different eons and timelines. Cats are just absolutely amazing creatures.
Mm.
And I know
And I've
that just
got,
from personal
a lot of my
experience.
spirit guides are all the big cats. They're part
Yeah.
of my protection.
But
Again, when I
we can
start,
see that through all different civilizations for ancient history
yeah,
as well, how powerful cats are, because they're literally everywhere. They're depicted in so many different civilizations, aren't they? Obviously,
mm,
specifically the Egyptians and Atlantis as well.
yeah, that's what I was just going
There's,
to say.
yeah, yeah.
But again, that everything happens for a reason. So when I was called to Mexico to start my shamanic journey, I went to Tirkutham, the matter great civilization there. Again, I didn't go to some places because I didn't felt right. Ironically, the people that did end up having experiences and knocking for six, but I was drawn into going into the Palace of the Jaguars. Little did I know what that was going to do sometime in my life.
Oh, wow. So that was your moment. That was your
And
connection.
again, interestingly, when we were in Mexico City before we went there, that the because they've got the Aztec mine and they were doing demonstrations because ironically my timing was the Festival of the Dead, which is the beginning of November in Mexico, and I was like, yeah, that's the death of old Greg. This is the new death and rebirth of Greg in Mexico in his calling to do with the Witchels Indians, which is why I had these weird experiences on Wirakuta, the pilgrimage routes of the thing. And again, though I was on a retreat, I was on a retreat for who I was. I was having things happening to me. I never had messages, things speaking to me. And because my other friends there had been doing their shamanic work for years and experimented with different psychedelics, I'd never touched them until I got to peyote that didn't do a lot for me because I needed X many amounts. But that was it. You know, in the clouds, I've seen it. When we were working with our guides, there was this massive great gorilla because the monkey is my power animal. Um, the one photo that I wish I'd taken, I was doing some healing in the Lake District, driving up the A1, and this massive, great Aboriginal face appeared in the clouds, and it just blew me away. Unfortunately, because I was on the A1M, I couldn't take a photo. And then I took the road to go to the lakes across the hills. And then there was this massive great eagle flying down the road as a cloud formation that transmuted into a dove. And again, this is part of the work of the shaman, is divination. We can cloud get information. I can chat to the clouds, they show things. And again, with what's happened to me, I haven't walked away from the work that I was doing in Portugal. I knew that I had to go rock bottom and, another form of shamanic death, clear out, and was prepared. It knocked me hard. But in those moments of suffering, that's where I creative. And I've been creating some things that are now manifesting. And the one thing that I'm promoting of what I do is called the British Bush Tucker tours, where I'm going to take you to meet plant medicines and food that are in our landscape. Because it was like just after my birthday, ironic, divine timing, birthday, Lionsgate, and I had a light mobile. It's like I follow a number of Aboriginals because I've got Aboriginal friends of me, and I keep seeing all them doing it. It's like it just came to me. It's like, why don't I do the same? Because I can speak. And I've never listened to my voice on when I see videos played out. And so again, it's coming out of my comfort zone as Mexico and a lot of things that I've done over the 10 years with my shamanic stroke healing work. And I'm just going to do it. So I just picked up the camera on my phone, did a chat out there, simple, and just put it out there. And I was inundated with the responses from so many friends just saying, and then I've watched it a number of times, and it's like, it's the first time that I haven't not liked my voice. And that's like, I've made the commitment. But what was really lovely was one of my Aboriginal friends that I follow on Facebook sent me a private message, and it's like that meant so much because she's internationally known in what she does. For her to give me that accreditation, and she's
Yeah.
pushing. I want your book. I want your book, Greg. You've got to get your book out there.
So before we talk about your book, what was the program that you're creating at the moment? The British Bush Tucker
Tours. So basically,
tours.
again, everything happens for a reason. So I'm back here in my native Suffolk, where it all started, as I said, as a little 14-year-old. And I used to go bird watching on the creeks. And it's like all the other herbalists, because I'm not a herbalist, and I say that, I'm not trained. I'm a plant spirit healer, a medicine man, whatever label you want to put, shaman, blah, blah, blah. So I've just been walking the creeks. And again, this intuitiveness and inner knowing. It's like, how do I know that cure cancer? How do I know that cure cancer? So I'm sitting with the plants, then I do research on what I'm finding, and it's like, but this is why I want to share, because a lot of shamans and healers are dying with ancient wisdom that's lost forever, and it's like, if I'm finding things here in the British landscape or wherever I've travelled in the world doing my work for the last 10 years, I want to share it with other people. That information needs to get out there. And like you're promoting me here, I've got other friends that have already said, we've got 2 pages of a spread in our magazine. There's 150,000 people. We met you. We believe in you. We want to promote you, because there's no one doing what you're doing here in the UK at the level that you do, let alone elsewhere in the world. And again, like going into that shop, how did I know that ground date seeds as a packet in this Indian shop in Crawley cures cancer? But again, that I'm really close friends with my African healer, Maxwell. And again, I'm connected to a number of other African healers. And it's like the wisdom that they hold about things that we would never, because it's ancestral. These are ancient people that this is past. Maxwell was told by his grandmother to heal. He's met other traditional healers in Kenya and in East Africa that are sharing that wisdom. I've got a plant medicine book of African plant meds, and supposedly there's no antidotes for snake bites. And the one that Maxwell shared with me was the tiny piece that comes off the runner to the flower, and that's his cure for snake bite. When you open up the African medicine book, the biggest section of any cure is snake bites, because all the traditional healers, what are you going to get bitten by? Snakes, scorpions, blah, blah, blah. So they've all got the medicine. And it's like, there are pages and pages of all these African plants that cure snake bites, even though it says there is no cure.
Yeah, yeah. No, the
Because there
earth
is a cure
always
for everything.
provides. There is, yeah.
Part of my work, and again, chatting to Fu, that the plants know what diseases are coming well before we do. I
Mhm.
was gifted some stuff when I was my third tour of Australia for 2 months, and I was like, why am I being gifted this medicine? I would just pull up out in the middle of nowhere in the dark. It was there. I went to the toilet, and it was like, it was there, and they just said, keep helping yourself, and I've smuggled it back on tour. But at the time, I didn't know what was coming. But again, it boils down to the plants know what's coming. They know who they can trust to share this information, because it's consciousness that we can tap in.
Absolutely love that. The plants know what diseases are coming before we do, and that's collectively as well. So I think
Yeah,
I do just want to touch on the COVID vaccines, just purely for myself and my own curiosity, really. um,
I
is
knew that was coming next. I had a sense that's where we were going.
I can't avoid it
Yeah,
because it's a reason why I'm here as well. Well, it's the reason why we're all here. All of us here,
yeah.
healers are here at this particular time, space of time for this, for COVID, for what's happening, for global corruption, and also specifically for the vaccines to help heal us and bring humans back to being human, because this vaccine is taking us away from being human. So, with that
But
quote
again,
there,
we're labeling a vaccine that isn't a vaccine. That gets to
that's
sticking a
right.
needle in. It's not your standard vaccine. It's
Absolutely.
sections, as you know, of messenger RNA, and it's like you're playing with genetics, and that the
Absolutely.
big biological. Again, I have got soldier friends that told me that they were being prepared for this, and again, I was found something in my diary with a friend, and it was in 2017. And I had a look, and it's like, am I reading this? I'm reading something that I sent to a friend in October 2017, and it had the words COVID-19. And it's like, how did I find something that was happening in the future that I? And as interesting, like you must have read my mind, because what I was going to share next was that, like, the plants know. And I was chatting to some African healer friends from a community that I'm involved with, that I'll be going out to on the west coast of Africa, and their big leader had to come during COVID. But what was happening is that he knew what plants to take. So when he had the vaccine put into his body, that vaccine didn't do. And it's the same again with the swabs. I'd read things off the swabs, and I had to go. Was going to Kenya. I put things in my body and up my nasal passage that if they broke the blood membrane in my nose with the swab, I wasn't getting what I picked off. So again, with the work that I do, that I'm highly protected with the plants. Again, Maxwell and I have said that we know that the plants won't kill us. They know who we are. When I've had things in me, my body purges. I know what medicines to get.
Hmm.
And the same when I was working with this doctor. I just went into his brain. I could see the damage, and I put in some plant meds, a simple oil that's every, but I'm not sharing it because it's my secret.
Hmm.
And I just put it in. And again, I know that that works. Again, when I was in the Amazon rainforest, I was chatting to my friend, the Australian friend that's out in the Amazon rainforest, and we were looking for plants. But again, he knows I have the conversation, and I would just go for a walk. It's like, oh, that one's just told me. And it's like that one. And then I met a community that they were in the higher Amazon rather than the lower basin, which is quite dark around Acutus. And they're in a community, and they were chatting to me, that inviting me to come on, unfortunately, because of the conflicts in the community, that they were looking for cures. But they said, we can't speak to the plants like you. We want you to come over, because we all know at some time, and I've seen it already, more and more people are going to have illnesses related to it. And when I was in Kenya, they haven't been able to push the vaccine. When I was there on the TV, all the time, they were still pushing the COVID vaccine. And, it hadn't been around, where are we? It was 3 years ago. Okay, but they're still saying COVID now. But I was seeing tumours. I've had clients come to me. I had a young boy that was going to uni that had a vaccine put into his body. And, in a number of months, he had cancer. And again, it's something I have to ask all my clients, because what's the point of me trying to do that if I've also got to remove whatever's going on? And I'm not saying everyone is going to be affected by it. We both know, look at top athletes that suddenly died that are fit and healthy, and you find out they're all been vaccinated.
Mm. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
Again, chatting to clients, to me, the first one, because it is an experiment, there was a lot of saline. It's the placebo.
Mm,
I When I was tapping into it, because when it first came, I knew something was coming on, and I spoke to the virus, and I was told there's two forms. There's a natural one, and again, I didn't know about Wuhan and Ukraine and all the other stuff, but I was told there was a genetically manipulated one that was got out in there, and
mm,
it's always been a threat. And it's been interesting. A number of other airborne diseases have come from one or two places in the world that we don't need to mention,
gosh.
and
Gosh.
other diseases that are man-made.
Yeah. Well, the majority of them are man-made though, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like
Mm.
Ebola, even the flu, I
Yeah.
think, is man-made. There's a lot of respiratory, well, like COVID, coronavirus, they're all respiratory, aren't they?
Yeah.
A lot of those
Mm-hmm.
are man-made. AIDS and all of those. But people don't know that. Still, people are not aware that actually these are released upon us on purpose.
Yeah.
Create the problem and then sell the solution. It's the old adage,
Well,
isn't
this
it?
is why I'm annoyed, in particular with a Mr. Gates man, that
Mm,
Africa is now fighting. They've said, you've poisoned us. The same when you look at what they were doing with young females in
yeah.
India. And
Oh,
then,
yeah.
and part of it is, four presidents of African countries were assassinated because of their stance. Interestingly, the Madagascan um, prime minister has pushed it to some of the others. And again, with the work that I've done with Maxwell, and again, ironically, I found it in the Amazon rainforest. Juga Ramota. That's all that his president was saying. Go and find it. It's in Madagascar. It's part of Africa. It's in the Amazon rainforest. It's a cure for COVID. Again, when I went out to Kenya, meeting the traditional healers, we went into rainforests, and it's like, because they can't afford these drugs, there's a bark of this tree. Or we went to this community, and the local healer medicine person was using this shrub. And it's common knowledge with all the people out there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, us here in the West, we're still relying on big pharma, the man in the white coat, while 75 to 8% of the world still believes in plant medicine.
Absolutely. But there's so many plants in the UK that can also cure respiratory diseases and also
Yeah.
painkillers as well. I mean, if we look, paracetamol literally comes from the willow bark tree, you know. Um,
Mm.
and if we were to go out and find the willow tree and actually use that as a pain relief ourselves, could it be just something as simple as stripping the bark off and
Yeah.
making tea
Yeah.
with it or just steeping
Well, the
it?
same when I do my workshops, and someone's saying, I've got pains. What do you want? And I said, every plant in front of you is anti-inflammatory.
Yeah.
Really? And it's like, yeah, because the plants know that. And
Yeah.
this is where a lot of diseases, we've got an inflammation in our body. And again, when you look at cancer, there's a source that will have caused something. And what
Yeah.
happens is, this is some of the science that my thousands of hours of research is, that you've got an inflammation, let's say, in your liver. So all your white blood cells and what have you are all fighting that. And then
Mm.
you get a stress or a trigger for the cancer, because they're fighting this lot over here. Like if you've got two or three skirmishes in a big battle, there's not enough to fight this cancer cells, which I tell all my clients, the doctors need to tell you, every single person on planet Earth and all the higher animals all have cancer cells. I've treated dogs and horses. They've seen what horses have eaten, a bark or a leaf, and then the tumors disappeared. Then the scientists extract it. And it's like, but the problem is, this is where big pharma goes wrong. In nature, it's the synergy.
So,
Students,
if
people want to
somebody that
train with
has
me.
cancer sort of saw this video and was really curious about how you could help them, how could they get in touch with you? What's the
Well,
best way?
the two main ways are through Facebook, through Touch the Sky or Instagram. And then partly what I do is do a consultation with them, because in the conversation, but again, professionally, beforehand I ask for a picture, because sometimes they show me a picture and I will be shown a past life version or something off it, because as going back again, it's the energy. And then I always ask, can I have consent to go into your body? Because I need to look at the different organs to have the conversation. Again, with us being shamans, I ask, can I have connections with your ancestors, your spirit guides? Because they can come in, and then when we're working, you've got a whole load of us all doing the work, that we do the work together.
That's brilliant.
You
And then
and
what
so,
happens
as I
after
say, a
that?
lot of the time I'm just a conduit. I've trained students, and I've gifted them my, not the golden jaguar, but my jaguar and wolf, and they just send me a message like, I'm doing some healing, and it's like, I can't believe that you gifted, and it's like suddenly in the healing space, your spirit guide of your jaguar and wolf comes in, and they just say, stop doing the work, we're doing the work. But that's how it should work at another level.
Absolutely. So after you've had the consultation with your client, what happens then? Do you arrange to meet them?
Well, again, as a, as I say, I do not ever push, because it's a two-way. I have
Okay.
to tap into them. I also ask them to get their commitment. Do you really want to be cured? Because sometimes I get lackluster, and it's like, that's hard work. I already know that I've struggled. While those that are so 100%, and that's why they're cured in a short period of time. We're talking weeks, Sam, not
That's
months
lovely.
or years. That some of these other big names,
Yeah.
because, and I say, please do not go to other healers. If you're working with me, because the energies that I do and what I'm bringing to the table, please respect me, because this is a contract between the two of us.
Okay.
And if you don't feel that I'm right, I don't talk your language, that's fine.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to be inundated with hundreds of terminal ill people. I'll help them, but there's a neediness. I have tight boundaries, because I need to look after this energy of body. If I'm doing a big cancer healing the next day, I have to have a quiet time to replenish my body. That's why I'm out in nature, by the sea. I'm in the woods. I eat high vibration or food. I surround myself with positive people like yourself, that I can just have the conversation, because
Okay.
I still need to be in the 3D, even though a lot of the time I'm in the other dimensions and cosmically as well.
That's lovely. Thank you ever so much, Graham. Um, okay, well that's lovely. You've been absolutely brilliant. Is there any just one final message that you would like to give to humanity as a whole, or to cancer sufferers,
Trust
or
in
to
yourself.
people
Trust in
exploring?
yourself, in your intuition.
Pardon?
This is what I say to so many clients, that when they know that they've got something wrong, and the doctors are saying no, and then they end up with stage 4. I've seen it so many times, predominantly because most of my clients are female, that women's intuition is there. Use
Mm.
it,
Trust
stick with it,
yourself.
and basically, do not, the other thing, do not give your power away. This is part of it. Again, the work of the shaman, and some of my energy work, is I do past ceremonies. You've given it away. In a I had again another cancer lady, and I laughed, and I looked in our house. There's all this amazing sports woman skiing, blah de blah, and we did the power. I just laughed when I held her hand, and I knew where we go. And she said, "What?" I said, "I just know." She said, "No, what's like? Just let's go back." And basically, she drowned, and then she came out and she said, "The one thing I've got fear is drowning. That's why I've never done any water sports in my life." And I said, "Well, now we know why."
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh.
But then she was
Going so
confident. She
much
went
more.
swimming
I love it. It's just
by
cleared
just going back to
just
an
like that.
event in a past life. We again going back to what we started, change something in a
Yeah.
past life. It ripples through, and physical. I've done things. I've had this hand cut off. I've been with chains all over my body and crucified and all the other things. It's been a long 10 years of going back to past lives. And I'm now dealing with not just earthbound or this cosmos. I was chatting to a friend some of the things that are happening to a number of us are in other galaxies. So I'm going even bigger into the cosmos to deal with it. As I said, those that trust in what I do, I go into those other realms dealing with the cosmic bounty hunters. Just to finish,
That's
how many
fantastic.
people do you know that can do um, regressions into cosmic bounty hunting?
I know.
But it
I don't
works.
know very
They've changed instantly when we've done what we need to do.
beautiful. But if you could give just one line, maybe 4 or 5 words, a really powerful quote, an empowering quote to give to somebody, what would you say?
I don't know. You put me on the spot.
Absolutely.
Well, as I said, just trust in yourself and
Okay.
believe.
I love that.
Trust in yourself and believe in yourself. We all
Beautiful.
have a worth. And I think that they're the things we all have a worth.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Greg, once again. And
Well, thank you so much. Thank you
you're
so much.
very,
I really
very
appreciate it.
welcome. You're very, very welcome. And we'll stay on, but we're just going to say goodbye, okay?
Yeah. Goodbye to everyone. Thank you for listening. You know where you can find me. I'm open to do anything, and because of what is energy, and I just push the boundaries. So if you've got something you think you're crazy, you've now met someone even crazier to help you.
And we love the crazy. It's what's
That's it.
needed. We need it. We need it.
Yeah, yeah. Get
Thanks,
out of the
Greg.
box. We've been conditioned for far too long. Claim our powers back. They've been in
Absolutely.
us as ancestors when we first walked from 4 to 2 limbs.
Okay. Um, so we're just going to do two 1 minute slots. It doesn't actually show the time on here, unfortunately. Never mind. We'll do two 1 minute slots quickly where I'm going to introduce you. And I'll say, hi, what should I say? Hi, this is Greg from Suffolk. How would you define yourself? What would you, we all have labels, your jobs and things
Well,
like
yeah.
that. If I was to introduce you, what would I say? This is Greg.
Well, I normally say medicine man, though it's
Okay.
predominantly plants. I do use animals. Bee venom. There are cancer cures. I'm also the other thing that I use is I'm an intuitive healer. When I'm working, it's like, oh, I'm going to bring a bit of that Aboriginal stuff, and it's like I'll bring a bit of that African because I've got all those belief systems and cultures from past lives and physical experiences. Shaman is just one label. Well, I was looking at some of the definitions and the overlap with witchcraft, but again, witchcraft is something completely different. But again, you'll need a shaman to undo some of that black magic or witchcraft.
Oof.
But I'm just me, is what I always say when people ask me. I'm just me.
Oh, I have a dog next to me. Hello, darling. You want to go out? 1 second. Um, bear with me. Let me just let my dog out. So both of them went on a 6 hour hunt yesterday. So I spent 6 hours sitting in the car park of our local park waiting for them to come back. And they've come back and they can hardly walk and they're really sore and feeling sorry for themselves. Oh my goodness. So the no walk today. Hello, my darling. This one, she's 13 this year. So she's a whippet. So her back legs are starting to
Yeah,
go. She's a little bit wobbly and feeling sorry for herself. Go on, out you go then. And she's used to come back covered in thorns and scratches and scrapes and bruises all over her. But funnily
yeah,
enough,
yeah.
this time she's come back and there's not a scratch on her, which is really strange because usually I've got the coconut oil out and I'm covering in coconut oil
I
and
bet.
bathing her and stuff. But I don't know. I don't know
Well,
what's
it's the
going on.
same. My Welsh border collie lass that we worked at Whirlybones, a woodland that I planted. But again, it's got so many spirits, wood sprites, bloody blah, past lives, and she would just disappear.
Yeah,
I'd never worried that she'd go somewhere. And then as she got older, like sort of that sort of age, that she'd come back at lunchtime. She knew when it was lunchtime, that intuitive,
absolutely.
because she was so connected with me in the work that I also do. And she would just come back happy. And then she would just lay under the pickup or in a bramble patch. And then when she died, she's actually buried there because the person who actually owns the wood, I've done cancer work for him, and his wife actually had a miscarriage in a Bronze Age with twins. Then that she's had miscarriages. Unfortunately, they can't have children, so they've adopted two daughters, but she had them. And again, I've done breast cancer on her, and she again John was one of my first clients because he's my client for 17 years. And it's like, Spirit really put me under the test. It's like, so you've now given me my best friend and my top client to cure of cancer, which of course I did. But I said, unfortunately, John, before I need to do, I need to pick up with Joe. And I just went in and popped ovarian cancer. But again, I didn't know I was seeing because they were having fertility treatment. She's into Chinese medicine. Her Chinese practitioner said, I'm going to give you a warning, Joe, because of all the things you've taken. Be mindful that sometime in the future you'll probably have ovarian cancer.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And
Isn't
she,
it?
and it was almost like psychic surgery because she just said, "What did you just do?" So I saw you clutch your fist outside me, but she said there was a pop of an energy or something in, and she implicitly trusts me because I do a lot of work on their land,
Yeah.
on the horses that they've got as well, with through my animal communication, animal healing, and
Gosh.
expanded that side of her through our
Oh,
friendship of 20 something years now.
oh, that's lovely. It's be good to have a long life friend like you, eh, Greg?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Greg. It's been
Thank you so
amazing
much.
as
As I say,
usual.
always
You're
lovely chatting
welcome.
to you.
It's going to be
Look forward to
great.
seeing you in person, helping your dear friend as well.
Thank you
Okay, have
so
a great day.
much.
Lovely weekend. Bye.
And
See you soon.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.